Have you been feeling unusually sensitive lately, like you're walking on eggshells? That's because this full moon in Libra is stirring the emotional pot and not in the most direct way. With a tense T-square involving Mars in Cancer and Chiron conjunct the Sun in Aries, old wounds and hidden frustrations are bubbling up to the surface. But instead of explosive arguments, what's more likely is a slow burn. Passive-aggressive comments, the silent treatment, and emotional reactivity that seems to come out of nowhere. And with the planet Venus, which is Libra's ruler and the dispositor of this full moon, stationing direct only 40 minutes after the full moon comes exact, this energy is ripe for breakthroughs in love, boundaries, and relationships. Only if you know how to work with it, though. In this video, we're going to cover everything you need to know to navigate this weirdly imbalanced full moon in the sign of Libra, including a forecast for all 12 signs. But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I post a new video typically every single Saturday around 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, so you don't want to miss that. I do forecasts and tutorials every single week to help you navigate your own astrology and the astrology ahead. And speaking of relationship breakthroughs, my brand new self-paced mini course on relationships and synastry is now open for enrollment, and you can get $100 off and a bonus live Q&A with me when you join us before April 28th. I am super excited about this course. We're covering not just like love and marriage and romantic types of partnerships, but all types of relationships. This is where you're going to dive deep into not just your personal relationships, but your ability to help your friends, your family, and your clients navigate their family dynamics, their friendships, their frenemies and competitors, their work relationships, and of course, the romantic partnerships, and so much more. We're releasing new lessons constantly every single week for the next few weeks, and you can get in on the ground floor for a discounted rate before we release all the content, before it's all finished and ready to go. And you get to help me build the course because I'm using your input to guide what's included in all of the lessons. And we're also including some of your charts in the demonstration. So you might have an opportunity to get like a mini synastry, mini relationship reading with me, which is rare because I don't do public readings. And so again, the link is down in the description below, Relationships and Synastry mini course. All right, so let's get into the chart for this full moon in the sign of Libra, the general forecast. And please don't skip this because this provides an important context for what we're going to be getting into in the forecast for all 12 signs. And so for this full moon in the sign of Libra, you can see here in the chart, there is a very tight conjunction between the Sun and Chiron. This actually comes exact just a few hours before the full moon comes exact. So this is the same day where we're going to have this Chiron Sun conjunction in the sign of Aries. This is a very intense, very vulnerable, very traumatic type of energy for a lot of people. Not to say that this is going to cause trauma, but it tends to drudge up things from our past, wounds that have been left unhealed, that have been left to fester, that we maybe need to address, that we need to take care of, that we need to work on healing and repairing. And this is going to highlight that in a very big way. It's going to highlight it especially when it comes to our relationships and the way that our relationships or the people in our lives are not paying attention to our needs, our desires, where we are sacrificing ourselves and our own ambitions for the needs, wants, and desires of other people. That's going to be a big theme. It's always a theme when we were looking at Libra because it is a very reciprocal energy. It's very much an energy of looking out for the needs of others first before your own needs. But when we have this energy here, this dichotomy between the Aries conjunction between the Sun and Chiron and the opposition of the moon that's illuminating all of this configuration, it's going to be a me versus you, like us versus them type of situation. This is also looking at your role in creating the situation that has left you unhealed. Like, where have you not taken control of your own healing? Where have you not done the work internally and externally to create a better situation for yourself, to move past the things that are weighing on you, especially when it comes to your relationships? There could be words shared, there could be emotions expressed that could be very triggering, very volatile, and a lot of these things are going to be expressed in very passive aggressive ways. And so for you, you might be expressing your hurt, your wounds, your vulnerabilities that stem from this deep shame, this deep-seated, just unhealed trauma from your past or unhealed situation from your past on this emotional level where that's bubbling up and you're taking it out maybe on other people when they don't necessarily deserve it. And you're doing it in a way that's very indirect. You're making that snide comment on the side. You're ignoring them or ghosting them. You're doing something that is, again, more passive aggressive than overtly aggressive. And it's more like emotional abuse that's going on right now, more like emotional manipulation that's going on right now, because this Mars in Cancer energy is very much about that. Mars is at its fall in the sign of Cancer, and it behaves poorly in this sign. Luckily, Mars is being mitigated by the station of Venus in the sign of Pisces. So we have this stellium that's been forming in Pisces. And I talked about this really in detail in my forecast for the Venus retrograde. So definitely make sure you check that out. It's not done yet. This is literally the forecast for the day that Venus stations. And that is a big part of what's going on today. And I cover that really in a lot of detail in that video. So check that out after this. But basically what's happening is there's a stellium between Venus, Saturn, and Mercury. And also there's a conjunction there with the North Node in the sign of Pisces, all at the end degree of Pisces as Venus is stationing to go direct. And this is in a really tight, really beautiful trine with Mars, which is in the sign of Cancer. And typically Mars in Cancer does not behave nicely. It is more emotionally aggressive and passive aggressive, very much passive aggressive. It can be very emotionally manipulative. It is one that is just like not the best energy for Mars, because Mars likes to express things in a way that's very direct, very straightforward. When it comes to Mars being in the sign of Cancer, it's more like not being able to just jump into something, having to feel it out, having to go through the emotions, having to be in the right emotional state. Things have to feel good. Things have to feel right in that moment for somebody to take initiation. When Mars is in the sign of Cancer, it makes it so it's a little bit cloudier, where you're being led by your emotions when it comes to the actions that you take, as opposed to being led by something more visceral, something more cerebral, even something more logical. It's like I'm being led by my emotions and I'm only taking action when it feels exactly right for me. And sometimes your emotions are not necessarily the best guide, right? They're not telling you if something is right or wrong. They're just telling you how you're feeling in that moment. And with this Chiron energy, that's a lot of what's going on here. We're being guided by what we're feeling in the moment, and what we're feeling in the moment is tied to unhealed, unresolved issues from the past. And that might be hindering our ability to move forward. And that's what this is highlighting at this full moon. And especially when it comes to those unhealed, unresolved relationship issues, which again is why if you are somebody who's an astrologer, who studies astrology, if you're a student, definitely check out my Relationships in Synastry course while you can still get it for $100 off, because this is how you're going to learn about the relationships in your life, especially if you're feeling this on that end, because this is not the end of this. Like Venus is stationing to go direct, but it's still going to be in its shadow through, I believe it's sometime in May. I'll get the exact dates for you later, but in that video, I have the exact dates for you. And so we're still dealing with the introspective period of Venus retrograde, where we were like, new information was being drudged up about our current relationships, where we're seeing things in a different way. We're seeing what we actually value in relationship or don't value in relationship. We're doing this internalization of our relationship dynamics and like weighing things out during the Venus retrograde. And now that Venus is direct, it's time to take action on those insights that were gained during the Venus retrograde, where we finally saw certain people in a different light, and maybe we needed to see them in a different light so we could approach those connections differently. Because Venus is the dispositor of this full moon, meaning it's the ruler of the sign of Libra, which is where this full moon actually is. Because Venus is the dispositor, Venus is a big player in this full moon energy, and Venus is stationing. Venus is like the highlight of everything that's going on here. Luckily, Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. It's very supported there. Like I said, it's making this wonderful trine to Mars too, where it's like you need to take action on something, maybe not direct action, but there is something where you're going to take action involving a relationship, involving making changes to an important partnership, involving maybe starting a new dynamic in a relationship or a new relationship overall. But this energy here is a lot about boundaries too, because Venus in Pisces, even though it's exalted, does not have the best boundaries with other people. It's like everything is connected. I have this soul bond with everyone and everything, and it's very romantic and dreamy and fantastical, and it's not necessarily rooted in a grounded sort of connection to other people where I am me, you are you, and sometimes we need to have some defining of those boundaries, some discernment there. And so Saturn is bringing in this reality check as part of this station, because Saturn's in an exact conjunction with Venus. And so this is like a reality check in our relationships going on at the time of this full moon. So it's like, on the one end, we're dealing with these unresolved wounds, vulnerabilities, insecurities, shame from our past experiences, especially as it's connected to relationships. On the other hand, it's causing us to lash out, maybe against people in our lives that don't necessarily deserve it because they weren't there, they didn't do the thing, but you are feeling triggered by something they said, they did. Maybe they're being passive aggressive and that's causing you to feel more vulnerable. But there is an energy here of potential dispute. But this is also the final chance to see your relationships clearly. So there's something going on in your relationships that's coming up to the surface, that's being illuminated right now, that requires healing, but also this level of discernment, this level of boundary setting that is necessary for us moving forward in order to have healthy, well-adjusted connections with other people. And so that's a big part of what's going on here. I would say that this is a time where in the collective and maybe in the media even, we're going to see a lot of people emoting in a way that's like over the top or over exaggerated, and also a lot of passive aggressive strikes against other people, like passive aggressive types of like disputes and arguments and things like that. What I do really like about this though is that healing component, and is that it's also that Venus component that's supporting the energy a little bit here, but also Jupiter is in a really nice trine with the moon too. And so there is a lot of benefit from this. So it's almost as if we're being protected against the worst case scenario when it comes to just drama in relationships. And there is something that comes from this that is beneficial, that is positive, that does expand our horizons and bring some sort of good fortune in the end. It's just that there's like a lot of mixed energy going on here and a lot that we have to deal with to get to that point. And so that's what's going on for the full moon. So let's dive into the forecast for all 12 signs, and make sure that you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview for the energy for this full moon and really the next couple of weeks ahead. Your rising sign will be the most predominant energy, your sun sign will be secondary, and your moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this energy will be more internalized and more subjective. For Aries and for Aries rising, this full moon is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. And so for you, the energy around this that I talked about at the beginning of the video around like relationships and how this is like impacting your connections with other people, the passive aggressive energy, this is all very relevant to you, especially because of the way this is aligned in your chart, Aries. And so there's a deep wound, vulnerability, insecurity that you're feeling on a very personal level. It could be an insecurity about your appearance. It could be an insecurity about your personality, your persona, about who you are, about your identity in some way. And that's being judged up. There's a vulnerability that you haven't quite healed through from your past, and it's being judged up, especially by family relationships, especially by connections in your home and family environment, maybe even by your parents. There's some sort of passive aggressive energy going on in the home or behind the scenes or with family. Or it could be in your romantic partnership. There could be a one-to-one connection that you have with somebody that you care about, and they say something and it could be quite triggering to you, or you might lash out because it is triggering to you and you're the one that's doing the passive aggressive dance with them. Regardless of what's going on here, your emotions are getting the better of you. Whatever's going on in this situation is probably not an equal reaction to the reality that's in front of your face. And so that's something to make note of. Taking time to calm down and sit through it and allow your emotions to go through their cycles before you respond. That's going to be the best way to deal with this energy. It's about responding rather than reacting. Taking even just a big deep breath after they say the thing or after you feel the emotion before you say the next thing, before you put your 2 cents in, before you do the passive aggressive thing or cut them out or whatever you're going to do. That's going to be the best way to deal with this, especially around the time of the actual full moon, which happens on April 12th. The other thing that's going on here, obviously, is the Venus station in a really nice trine with Mars. I talked about this in my Venus retrograde video. Definitely go back and watch that if you haven't already done so. But there is a little bit of help coming from behind the scenes. You have a secret or a hidden source of strength and support, like somebody who's rooting for you from the sidelines, from behind the scenes, that's going to support you through the difficulties around this full moon and support you through the emotional ups and downs of this full moon. And then for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this full moon in the sign of Libra is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of health, work, and daily routines. For Libras, there's something going on where there's something weighing on you behind the scenes, behind closed doors. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's an awkwardness, a shame, a vulnerability, and insecurity. It could even be a trauma or a past wound around isolation or feeling isolated, feeling like a loner, feeling like an alien in this world, on this planet Earth, that's being drudged up in some way through an important communication that you might have with somebody that is very triggering for you over these next few days, but especially around the 12th of April. And so there's something going on here that needs to be healed deep down, like subconsciously, in order for you to facilitate the physiological, the actual physical healing that you maybe need, want, and desire. This is about looking at your health routines, but also looking at how your psychology and how your subconscious impacts your health and how your negative self-talk on a day-to-day basis and the information you take in from other people impacts your health as well. There could be something going on here in the media even that you read or that you take in that's very triggering to you. And so just be careful about your information diet around the full moon on the 12th. You do have a lot of supporting energy from your friends, your social networks, the people that you surround yourself with by choice that can help ground you and support you through this process. If you're overblowing something, like it's being blown out of proportion because your emotions have gotten the better of you, because you heard information and you can't tolerate it, your friends will bring you back down to earth. And so lean on them a little bit. And then for Gemini and Gemini rising. For Geminis, this full moon is happening in your 5th house, which is the house of children. It's the house of fun, play, joy, hobbies, interests, things that you do because you love to do them. And for the most part, that's not a bad thing. I love this energy, especially if you are a Gemini sun, moon, or rising anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees, even really 15 to 25 degrees, I would say this is going to be benefiting you the most because Jupiter is in your 1st house, still Gemini, so you're being blessed with more opportunity, more optimism, a greater perspective on your reality, and that's going to help you through whatever it is that's going on here. But for the most part, there's an energy here of guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, trauma that's being highlighted and illuminated in your 11th house of friendship. It could be that one of your friends says something and it's triggering to you. Maybe you were like the loner or the outcast, or you were picked on by your friends like early on in life, and something about what they said or the way that they said it rubs you the wrong way. There could be like an emotional outburst that comes from that. But this is also mostly highlighting what you need to do in order to heal so that no longer gets to you, because it's not necessarily that somebody's trying to hurt you right now. It's more that it feels that way because of past experience, because Chiron is usually that. There is potentially an energy going on with a friend who needs your support, who's feeling vulnerable, who's feeling wounded in some way, who's feeling hurt in some way, or maybe who even has a physical ailment where you might want to help them out. Don't help them out financially. That's what I would say. So don't mix friends and finances around the time of this full moon, which is on the 12th of April. In general, I always say that's a bad thing to do. just from like personal experience and having a lot of readings with a lot of people, you don't want to like loan money to your friends. But in this particular circumstance, you really don't want to do that. That's a source of arguments and disputes and disagreements. And if you already have done that, will be a source of arguments, disputes, and disagreements. However, the hard work that you put into your job, your career, your public reputation, the work that you do out in the world will funnel money in. You might even get a burst coming in around the time of this full moon. And so it's okay. It's like it's an overreaction. Do you really need the money that badly that you need to fight with somebody about it? Probably not, because money's coming in right now. And then for Cancer and for Cancer rising. For Cancer and for Cancer rising, this full moon in the sign of Libra is happening in your 4th house, which is as the home, family, property, and real estate. This is an energy where there could be passive aggressiveness coming from you, Cancer. Like, you're the one that's been quite passive aggressive over the past few months on and off, with Mars going back and forth, retrograde and direct in your sign. And so this is self-directed. So something that you say, you might not even realize that it came across as like aggressive or challenging or like a provocation. Like, you probably don't even realize that it's coming across that way. But something there is going to stir up difficulty with your career, your public reputation, with the boss, with a superior, or with your public standing or public reputation in general, or with family. There could be an emotional reactivity that happens, like with a family dynamic or in the home, as a result of the things that you're saying or doing that you might not mean to be doing. I would say for most of you, you're not trying to be an asshole, but it could come across that way. And so you have to be very mindful of the way that you're interacting and engaging with the world. The things that you're saying and doing, they can come across as more harsh, and they can come across as being passive aggressive, even if it's not intended that way. So just be mindful of what you're doing. Take a breath before you say that thing, before you take that action, before you make that what you think is maybe a funny comment but maybe comes across as rude, that type of thing. You are being supported in a lot of ways, though. This is a really great time where the actions that you are taking, especially the ones that benefit you personally, are rooted in integrity and rooted in a sense of your values and your belief systems that's really strong right now. And so I do that for Cancer. For Leo and for Leo rising. For Leo, this full moon is happening in your 3rd house, which is the house of communication, day-to-day connections with people. It's the house of siblings, extended family, neighbors, especially, and your immediate community. It's the house of short-distance travel. There's something going on here where there's an innate wound, vulnerability, or insecurity that's being judged up, maybe around your beliefs or an old religious ideology that you used to adhere to, or maybe that was forced on you in your early life, where something that is, it's like almost as if there's information that comes in a smaller burst, like through a message, through a communication with someone, through like a brief interaction with a neighbor or somebody in your community. It's almost as if there's information maybe that comes through an email or a podcast or a newsletter or something like that. Feels triggering. It's like it makes you heat it up a little bit and you're having trouble letting go of that. Just know that your emotions are getting the better of you. Like, this is something that it's coming up because you need to recognize it, and you need to realize that this is still an area of where things are a little bit raw still, and you need to heal. You need to work through that. Overall, though, for Leos, I don't think this is the worst energy. There could be some difficulties involving travel, especially, that come up, where something comes up that could cause you to feel like overly emotional. Like, your emotional reaction to the travel difficulties is going to be actually bigger than the difficulties themselves. And so that's a big part of this too, to keep in mind. And so whatever it is that's going on for you, if you're having a dispute with your neighbor, if your car is breaking down, if you are having some sort of disruption to your travel plans over the weekend, like, just know that it's not as bad as you think it is. Like, right now, you're very easily able to get like heated up about those types of situations specifically. And you do have a source of support here. So a couple of different sources of support. So if you are experiencing difficulties with travel, lean on friends, ask for a ride, whatever it is that you need to do. That can be a big benefit. This is also a really great time to communicate with groups of people and with your tribe as well. And I also really like the energy going on here in your 8th house. There's something going on where if you're doing the deep spiritual inner work, if you're working on your innate fears and anxiety negativities and traumas from the past, like this is actually going to help you quite a bit. There's a lot of good information here for healing, or a lot of good information, a lot of good energy here for healing for Leo and for Leo rising. For Virgo and for Virgo rising. For Virgos, this full moon is happening in your second house, which is the house of money, finances. This is the house of your material possessions. And so there's something here that's being highlighted. There's an old wound, insecurity, vulnerability around joint finances, around debt, around taxes, around other people's money, or around finances in general that's being highlighted. And it's probably being triggered in a lot of ways by something that a friend has either said or done that has rubbed you the wrong way. Just know that your emotional response to this is bigger than the actual threat to your financial situation, and that there's some vulnerabilities here that need to be healed through in order to create the financial future that you want for yourself moving forward. I really love this energy, especially because you have Jupiter in the 10th house trining the full moon. There could be something like an opportunity that comes in, or that has come in the past, that is now becoming fruitful, where it's coming to fruition or culmination and bringing in actual money, like actual resources for you that maybe were delayed or were not expected to happen right now. And so I like this for, there's some sort of like emotional stuff going on. There's some sort of old trauma that you need to heal through and deal with around finances. However, the money's there. It's more that you're being triggered, and you need to realize that, and you need to heal through it in order to not just embrace the opportunities, but recognize that they're happening, right? Recognize that there are things that are happening that are beneficial to you financially right now, even if it's not perfect. That's going to be a big part of this too. And your one-to-one connections are going to be a source of relief, a source of groundedness. Your relationships are going to become much happier, healthier, with much better boundaries. There is a big shift going on in your relationships. Definitely watch the Venus retrograde forecast if you haven't already done so to get more information about that. But that's another source of interesting energy, but mostly good energy, where it's mitigating some of that Mars, which could cause conflicts in your friendships this week. And then for Libra and for Libra rising, this full moon is happening in your sign, Libra. And so you are being highlighted right now. There's a lot of healing that you've been working through in your one-to-one connections with other people, especially your romantic partnerships over these past few years, but especially right now, it's being triggered, it's being activated in a really big way with that Chiron conjunction to the sun, which comes exact on the same day as the full moon on the 12th of April. And this is you pulling yourself out of those relationship issues and focusing more on you, your wants, your needs, your desires, how you fit in, and your role in creating the situations that you are now in your relationships that feel uncomfortable, that feel vulnerable, that maybe you feel ashamed of in some way. There is a big, deep healing that needs to happen in your connections with other people, and it needs to come from you in order for you to have healthier, more well-adjusted relationships moving forward. There could also be an argument, dispute, disagreement, passive-aggressive energy going on involving work-related relationships and your career and public reputation in general right now. Just know that your emotional reaction or response to the situation is going to be probably more volatile and more overkill than it needs to be. The situation itself is disproportionate to the way that you're feeling about it. When you get down to it, when you ground it down to earth, what's going on here is not the end of the world, but it could feel like it is. And so recognizing that your emotions might be getting the better of you, even though the moon is in Libra, there's a lot of extreme emotion coming through because of that square to Mars. The other thing that's going on here is that you have a lot of support in your 6th house. There's something that you've been creating. You've been moving in a new direction when it comes to your health, your work, and your daily routines, especially when it comes to your work. There is something here where something you've been working very hard on a day-to-day basis, you start to see some benefit or some reward from that, and that channels up into your 10th house of career and helps you reach some goals. So that could be a really beautiful thing at this full moon too. And then for Scorpio and Scorpio rising. For Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your 12th house, which is the hidden house. This is the weekend for you to just hide out. Not the worst full moon energy for Scorpios. That's definitely not the case. However, It's more of a restful full moon. Normally full moons are more energized, more supercharged, and there is a lot of energy around this full moon. But for you, it's like you've been going through the ringer when it comes to your day-to-day life, your day-to-day routines. There are wounds, vulnerabilities, insecurities around your health, around your pets, around your work that have been bubbling up to the surface. Somebody might say something, or there could be something that comes through, like a belief system, somebody's philosophy about something, some sort of religious value system. There's something going on here where somebody's beliefs could be very triggering to you. There's also something going on here where it's almost as if you have to pull yourself out of the day-to-day in order to feel more balanced emotionally, and in order to not play into the volatility and the fear and the kind of craziness that's going on with Mars. The other thing that's going on here, though, is that there is a lot of supporting energy coming from that Venus station and that stellium in the sign of Pisces. So there's something going on here that you've been redefining when it comes to your hobbies, your interests, the things that bring you joy. And now you get to channel that up into your ninth house, which is maybe engaging in additional education around something, or teaching something, or maybe traveling because there's some place that you want to go that's connected to the things that you love or your joy. There could also be support coming through your connection with your children, and it makes you feel a lot better about whatever's going on the day-to-day. But really this weekend is really leading into this weekend, but especially this weekend on the 12th of April, this is a time for you to pull yourself out of it and just rest. Like, you need to get out of the chaos in order to see it much more clearly. And then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, your full moon in the sign of Libra on April 12th is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, group associations, social networks, and people that you surround yourself with by choice. I like this for Sagittarius because this is trining your descendant if you are a Sagittarius rising. And even if you're a Sagittarius sun or moon, this is going to be sextiling your sun or your moon. It's a nice energy. You have Jupiter in the opposition here. This is a great time for socializing. For most people right now, not so much because of that like Mars tension and that passive aggressive energy. There could be some tension that comes through joint finances in marriage, in partnership, debt, other people's money in some way. There's some sort of financial tension that could disrupt your ability to enjoy yourself when you're out and about and doing the things that you love to do, or hanging out with friends, or hanging out with your partner even. But this is a really great time to do that. If you can set that aside and realize that your emotional response is out of proportion to what's actually going on financially, then this is a really beautiful time for you to go out, spend time with friends, spend time with your partner and with your friends even. This is a really great full moon for social connection and taking the things that you love and channeling that into maybe like a group activity of some kind. This is, the best energy is going to come through group connection this week. The other thing that's going on here is, there's some tension financially, but there's a solution that comes, and it's going to come very quickly because Venus is stationing in the 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. And so either your family of origin helps you out, something involving a property helps you out. There's something going on here where there's a benefit coming from behind the scenes that's going to alleviate some of the pressure. And then for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. For Capricorn, this full moon in the sign of Libra on April 12th is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. There is a very clear irritation coming up that stems from one-to-one connections and partnerships. It could be a family connection. It could be your spouse or significant other. It could be a business partnership, but it is causing some friction and potentially causing emotional imbalance when it comes to the way that you deal with your career, with your business, with the work that you do out in the world, or your legacy that you leave behind after your working years. There could be an open enemy that's very literally speaking out against you, and it's hurting your public reputation in some way. These things are going to be very triggering because it's going to bring up old wounds, vulnerabilities, and insecurities from your past, and especially from your early childhood, and especially from your relationship with your parents. This is like somebody is coming in and saying just the right thing, but it's very covert. It's very passive aggressive. It's very indirect, and so you can't prove that they're saying the thing in the way that they are. You can't prove that they're out to get you. You can't prove that they're trying to push your buttons, but it's likely that they are. And even if they're not trying to, they still are. And so there's something about this that's disruptive to your sense of equilibrium and your emotional equilibrium when it comes to your career and your work and focusing on the task at hand. However, if you're able to realize that your reaction, your response is disproportionate, like your emotional reaction is disproportionate to the actual threat and the actual situation that's going on here because of that triggering that's going on of something that's from the past that's deep-seated this wound, then you have a lot of potential to make really big strides in your career and put something out there that people are going to love, or even get a promotion, do something big, right? Because this is the full moon in your 10th house and it's in a really nice trine with Jupiter in your 6th. There's an opportunity that you have taken advantage of, or that you could take advantage of on a smaller scale for a new work-related project or on a day-to-day basis with your work, that's going to bring bigger and like way more expansive benefits to your career and to your public standing moving forward. And if there is some sort of tension one-to-one with somebody where there is like an open enemy who's working against you, or it could even be your partner just says something that rubs you the wrong way and they're not necessarily an enemy, but right now it feels like it, there is reprieve, and that comes through leaning on your community, that comes through getting really good advice from somebody, that comes from taking a step back and maybe even taking a day trip and getting away from the situation. And so all of that is possible for Capricorn. And then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. For Aquarius, this full moon is happening in your 9th house, which is the house of your perspective on reality. It's the house of your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you. It's your religious and ideological value systems. And something about this is being tested over the course of the weekend of the 12th. And there is potential for you to be traveling or exploring or expanding your mind in some way. There is potential for you to be broadening your horizons through additional higher education. But there's something going on here in your work, in your health, in your day-to-day routines, or maybe even with a coworker or an employee it's like you can't prove that it's a thing because it's more covert, it's a little passive aggressive, but it's rubbing you the wrong way and it's distracting you from this bigger picture, this broader perspective on what's going on in your life right now. This should be a full moon where you're able to take the things that bring you joy and take those benefits of engaging in those things and channel that into some sort of either mental or physical adventure. But there's something going on here where your day-to-day life is just irking you and you're not able to focus as much as you should be on that thing. Now, there is potential for the financial benefits of your day-to-day work life and your day-to-day work experience, even though there's tension right now and it feels like there's a lot on your plate and there's some friction going on. It's the financial benefits are coming and it alleviates that pressure where it's like, all right, this is happening right now. I can't really enjoy myself fully the way that I want to this weekend, but there's money coming in. And so in the end, it's going to be worthwhile. And so that could be part of the picture for a lot of Aquarius rising people. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising, this full moon in the sign of Libra on April 12th is happening in your 8th house. This is the house of deep-seated anxiety, trauma, deep-seated psychological issues that stem from experiences that usually happen earlier in life. This is a time of profound healing for Pisces on a psychological and emotional level, and especially profound healing as it relates to your family of origin, as it relates to your ancestral lineage, as it relates to your connection with your parents, with your home. There's something going on there that could be very beneficial. There's also a healing taking place financially where you have some sort of guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, some money mindset issues that stem from some sort of trauma or a difficult experience that happened in your past or that you witnessed vicariously that stuck with you. And now is a time where you get to actually see that. It's gonna irk you, it's gonna come up, but you're gonna be able to heal through it very easily, especially for Pisces. This is going to flow in a way that's very supportive to you. And so I do love this energy. There's something going on too where money could be coming in or money could be coming up that's in connection with your home, your property, or even if you're renting, where a money situation comes up that could be beneficial to you in some way that's connected to your property. And so I like this. The other thing that's going on is that Venus is stationing in your sign, Pisces. Not the worst thing. Saturn's there, but this could be bringing up major boundary issues where there's something that you are so passionate about, that you want to create, that you want to do, that is connected to your joy. Or there's something going on with your children that you want to engage with, that you want to initiate, that you want to get started with. And this Venus energy is causing you to create the boundaries you need to create to move into the right path, your destined path, and open up that experience, that ability to connect with your children or do the thing that you want to do with your children or to connect with your joy way more. And so that has been a source of friction, but that's going to start to open up for you around the time of this full moon on April 12th. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share this with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from the information that I share with you today. And as always, comment below and let me know how you're experiencing this full moon energy, how you've experienced this Venus retrograde too, because that's a big part of it. I'm always interested in hearing about the astrology in action. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.